97 years old, and I am still here, still waking before sunrise, still pouring my first cup before the birds start, still thinking clearly enough to remember every one of their names. People lean in like I am about to give them a password. Walter, what is your secret? I always smile because the answer is simpler and stranger than they expect. Today I want to tell you about the foods I have eaten my whole life. Humble foods, inexpensive foods, foods that still look like they came from somewhere, not a factory, not a label, not an advertisement. Just the earth. I have been eating most of these since boyhood, watching my mother cook from whatever the garden gave and whatever the land provided. The last one is my secret food. The first group of foods that I believe carried me this far all came from the ground. Nothing that required a laboratory to explain. Just the earth, doing what the earth has always done. I have been drinking black coffee since I was 16 years old. Black coffee every morning without fail for over 80 years. What I did not know then, and what science has since confirmed, is that coffee is packed with antioxidants, compounds that fight the kind of slow internal damage that builds up quietly over decades. It keeps the mind alert. It protects the brain. Don't ruin it with a pile of sugar and a splash of chemical creamer. The second thing has been with me just as long. My mother kept a berry patch along the eastern fence of our yard. Blackberries mostly, some wild blueberries she had transplanted from the woods. Every summer, from June through August, we ate them straight off the vine, fingers stained purple, mouths full before we even made it back to the porch. Those color compounds are the plant's natural defense system, and when you eat them, they become yours. They quiet inflammation, the slow fire that burns through the body over years. Now this next one surprises people. Raw cacao, not chocolate from a candy wrapper, but the real thing, dark and slightly bitter, the way it comes before the sugar gets added. I started keeping it in the kitchen in my 50s, after a friend from Guatemala brought me a small bag and told me his grandmother had eaten it every day of her 94 years. I took one small square each afternoon, like medicine, and that is really what it is. Raw cacao contains compounds that support the mitochondria, the tiny engines inside every cell in your body. When those engines run clean, you have energy, real energy, not the jittery kind, the steady, quiet kind that carries you through an afternoon without needing to sit down. Small habit, long result. And then there are the greens, spinach, kale, Swiss chard. We called it simply greens, and we ate it because we grew it, not because a magazine told us to. I have eaten for decades what I now understand to be one of the most protective foods on earth. Folate and vitamin K for the brain and the bones, lutein to keep the eyes sharp, a quiet, steady fight against inflammation that works whether you notice it or not. I still make them on Sundays. Now, not everything I ate came from the ground. Some of the strongest nutrition I ever put in my body came from animals. I know that word meat makes some people nervous these days, but I am 97, so I will just say what I have seen. The fatty fish came first. Salmon, trout, whatever the river offered. EPA and DHA, the healthy fats in fatty fish, are among the best things you can feed a brain. They support memory. They protect against the kind of cognitive fog that creeps in quietly after 60. Some studies even suggest they help lift the weight of depression. I still eat fish twice a week without a doctor telling me to. And here is what that actually means when it comes to eggs. For about 30 years, somewhere between the 1960s and the 1990s, the whole country decided eggs were dangerous. Too much cholesterol, they said. Skip the yolk, they said. I never listened. My mother fried 2 eggs every single morning of her adult life, and she made it to 89 with her mind completely intact. The yolk, the part everyone was afraid of, contains choline, which the brain uses to build the signals that keep your thinking clear. It contains lutein for the eyes. It is a complete protein in a shell small enough to hold in one hand. I always called it a perfect little package of life. I still eat 2 every morning, same as my mother, same as her mother before her. Now here is the one that will raise some eyebrows. Grass-fed red meat, not every day, and not the cheap kind raised in a pen the size of a closet, but good red meat from a cow that ate grass and moved around. I have eaten that my whole life, and I do not apologize for it. Iron keeps the blood strong. Vitamin B12 keeps the nerves firing and the energy steady. Carnitine helps the body actually use the fuel you give it. Cows take what the earth grows and turns it into something your body can use directly. Strength comes from that. But before I get to the last one, there is something else that has been in my kitchen longer than almost anything else. Fermented foods, sauerkraut, pickles, buttermilk, not the kind from a plastic bottle with a 3-year shelf life, but the real kind, the kind that is alive. I grew up eating fermented food the way most people eat bread, without thinking, without knowing why, just because it was always there. What I did not understand then was that I was feeding something invisible. Billions of bacteria living in my gut that control far more than digestion. The immune system, mental clarity, even the steadiness of your mood from one day to the next. Scientists now call it the gut-brain connection. My mother just called it keeping the insides happy. Same thing, different century. The last food is the one no grocery store carries, and it is the one that matters most. Purpose, love, and joy. I have watched people eat perfectly and still fall apart at 70. Men who followed every protocol, took every supplement, tracked every meal, and still went hollow-eyed by 65, moving through their days like a clock that is ticking but has nowhere to be. The body was fed, but the spirit was starving. And here is what I learned from that. You can nourish every organ in your chest and still die empty if you never feed what lives deeper than organs. Purpose does something to the body that no food can replicate. It tells every cell you still have work to do. And the body listens. I have seen it. People with no special diet, no expensive routine, living sharp and warm well into their 90s because they still had someone to love, something to tend, somewhere they were needed. That is not poetry. That is biology. A person with a reason to wake up wakes up differently than one without. Bitterness ages you faster than any bad food ever could. I have watched men carry old grievances into their 60s, men who never forgave the brother, never released the loss, never found their way back to laughter after the hard years. They went stiff in ways that had nothing to do with their joints. Resentment is a slow poison, but joy, real joy, not the performed kind, not the kind for photographs, joy relaxes the body, steadies the heart, and tells your whole system that the war is over and it is finally safe to rest? You are not too old to find that. You are not too far in to turn toward it. Whatever you have been carrying, put some of it down. Laugh a little harder than feels appropriate. Call the person you have been meaning to call. Plant something. Forgive someone, even if they never asked. Not for them, for the cells in your body that are waiting for the signal that life is still worth protecting. Faith, for me, has been part of this, a quiet, private sense that my life has not been random, that the people I loved mattered, that the morning is worth meeting. That belief has held me upright on days when nothing else could. The food feeds the body. The spirit feeds the life. You need both, and it is not too late to start. So there it is, 9 foods and a life. The coffee, the berries, the cacao, the greens, the fish, the eggs, the red meat, the fermented things my mother kept in a crock on the counter, 8 foods from the earth, doing quiet work inside the body for decades, and then the 9th, the one no store carries, purpose, love, joy, and the willingness to keep showing up for the life you still have. The foods are the practical layer. The spirit is the deeper foundation. You cannot have one without the other and call it living. The ones who lasted, really lasted, sharp and warm and present, they fed the body and they fed the life. Both, always both. So here is what I want to leave you with. Not a meal plan, just this. Eat real foods. Call the person you have been putting off. Forgive the one you have been holding against. Find something small that needs you and tend to it. That is the medicine no laboratory has ever bottled, and it has always been free. Now, if you will excuse me, my cup is not going to pour itself.